Hello, YouTube. I'll wait till y'all come on in. Hey, one person, who's on here? Go ahead and say hello and hit the thumbs ups. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I didn't go on StreamYard today, but I may go on there later on. So anybody who wants to come on my channel, be a guest, I would appreciate it. What time? I'll be back in a minute. Charlie, where you at? Who's the one person that's on here? Hey, two people, go ahead and hit the thumbs up as you enter the room. It's not going to cost you anything. It's free. I appreciate it. And please subscribe to my channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to start in a few minutes. I'm waiting. Hey, three people, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. 3 for 3. Much appreciate. Dang. All right, let me start. Y'all just have to come on in or catch the replay. So, today, President Biden made a decision about those student loan forgiveness. So, after 2 years of putting a pause on student loans due to the COVID, when he first came on the campaign trail, one of his promises was about tackling the issues of student loans, and certain Democrats in Congress was proposing a $50,000 forgiveness. But the decision came down today. I'm only going to summarize it. Y'all can watch it. I'm quite sure you'll see about 50 billion YouTube videos talking about it. I already saw one person on it, but then I didn't even listen to everything he had to say. He was basically really not trying to give no criticism about people felt that they shouldn't give student loan forgiveness because they claim it's going to rise or raise the rate of inflation and everything else, which is a bunch of bullcrap because that doesn't make any sense considering that businesses people who get Section 8 housing and get all these child tax credits and everything else was getting all this money, and people filing businesses and filing money they owe for companies they so-called started, or people who don't want to get up their lazy fucking ass and get a job, and they sit around getting Section 8 housing and food stamps. And not, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but when you live on it forever, generation after generation after generation, and you're 20 something years old, 30 something years old, 40 something years old, and you're not doing nothing for yourself, and then you get people who start businesses, so-called businesses, on millions and millions of dollars, and they turn around, get those loans forgiven. People who file bankruptcy and irresponsibly use a credit card and accrue debt of foolishness, get that wiped out. But then the minute someone mentioned about student loans, well, why should that be forgiven? I didn't go to college. Or so-called people who claim they went to college. I went to college and I didn't have to take out no loans, and I didn't have to do this, and I worked and I was responsible. I didn't, the other thing, I didn't. I chose a career where I could get a good job, and if you major in something and you can get a job that pays more, all kind of stupidness. I even someone on several months ago on a channel, I was convinced me, JT the Pocket Watcher, which I unsubscribed from his channel and no longer watch him, and had that discussion. Had that discussion several months ago, and then hear these people in the chat that was talking about, ain't nobody forced no one to take out no loan, and no one said to choose majors that you're not gonna get paid a lot of money, and blah 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 blah. Bullshit arguments. If you think now, so basically, the student loan forgiveness is that they will forgive up to $10,000 of student loans if you didn't get a Pell Grant. And if you did get a Pell Grant, then it's $20,000 of student loan forgiveness. Now, it's not every student loan that qualifies. Every person is not going to qualify for a loan forgiveness. So if you took out private student loans, not backed up by the government, but private student loans, that's not going to be included. So if you went to school and you took out a private student loan, that's not going to be counted. But if you took out a student loan backed up by the government, then you're going to get your student loans forgiven. And also, the student loan will resume payments at the end of December. So that means January 1st. So basically, you get notified that $10,000 or $20,000 of student loans will be forgiven for what you owe. So if you're one of those lucky ones who only have, say, $10,000, $15,000 student loans, and this $10,000, then you only got $5,000 remaining. Or basically, if you owe less than that, it's going to be forgiven. Me, unfortunately, will not be one of those that will have a student loan wiped out to zero, because I owe a whole lot more than that. But I've been paying my student loans under the income driven plan, meaning that my student loan payment is going to be based on my income. And since I've been filing for that particular part of the application process, because my income is basically that it was like, by the time I take out basic expenses, housing, food, transportation, I still wouldn't have been able to make any monthly student loan payments at a certain point. And when I worked at the government, I don't know how I was like, wait a minute, I worked for the IRS for 10 years. Now, when did it start where I could have given the public service forgiveness loan? Now, they gave me the information in terms of how many payments qualified, but I need to go back. I need to go back and get the information as to how many more years I have to go. But I've been paying my student loans. Now, I haven't been paying it every month, but it was at one point I was paying it, you know, and therefore I was like, by the rate that I'm going, my mortgage would be paid off before then, you know? So, but those who have any type of student loans that qualifies for that 20,000 or 10,000, that's nothing compared to the billions of dollars that was given out to businesses, people who just filed bankruptcy, and nobody said nothing about that. Nobody complained about that. But the ones who said, "Well, I paid off my student loans, and why should people who owe student loans get their debt forgiven? They should pay it off in full because I paid all mine in full." And you now you're speaking. See, that's jealous because you first of all, when the people you hear yapping their mouth about, "I paid off my student loans and blah blah blah." How much was your student loans when you went to school? It probably was nothing. You know, it probably was a few $1,000s, and they're acting like they're doing something. And then for those who, some of these wealthy people who got money, particularly white folks, they had their self planned and had themselves set. So when they graduated from college, they ain't had no student loans, or they had very little to the point a few $1,000s here and there, and had more of an advantage when they come out of school. So black folks, Hispanic folks, people of color should not be the ones getting on nobody's YouTube channels criticizing about that's not fair and that's not, and when in fact of the matter is, I pay my taxes plus more. I'm not sitting back here, living off the government, you know, tax season come, they getting all these child tax credits and $4,000 or $5,000 per child and all this stuff. And that is no more different than all these credits that people be getting, and they don't even spend it on the child. Ain't nobody, so when you want to argue about fairness about student loan forgiveness and who should get it and why should they, why should that little $10,000, $20,000 is going to help a lot of people, but that ain't no. People act like somebody's gonna be jumping for joy and yelling in the streets. Oh my God, I'm forgiven. And as for those for profit schools that defrauded a lot of people, promising about careers and services and and you know people trying to go and better themselves financially by going for a job or whatever the case may be. When at my age at 52, 53, I'll be 54 in a couple more months. When I was going to school, that was stressed about college, the importance of college. Oh, you got to go to school, go to college, blah, blah, blah. And for the ones who in my age group, if they didn't go to college and they say, "Oh, we go to the military," and most people who go to the military, that ain't no, they don't even get into the military and be smart enough to get anything that's really worthwhile in the first place. The battery test they take for the service. Some people get these little entry level BS jobs, even in the military. Nobody speaks about that. And then they stay there. And they say, "Oh, if you lucky to stay there for 10 years, or you stay there long enough to collect a pension, or whatever the case may be, that's not guaranteed either. Just because you're in the military, you ain't guaranteed to just get a job when you finally get out. A lot of people They just get in the military because one, you was too stupid to go to college. You were too dumb to even do something with your life, and you're forced to go to the military so you can have a place to live and a bed to sleep in and food to eat. And you went into the military, and some people stay there for 4 years, and when they get out, they ain't no better off. It's a lot of veterans who went to the military. They're not doing better off, and some don't even take advantage of the GI Bill or even anything so they could continue their education. So don't so anybody comes on here that wants to criticize about these student loan forgiveness, $10,000 or $20,000 if you receive the Pell Grant, um, but yet majority of people worked when they was in school too. They was working. They was working while they were going to school too. The problem is that in the last 50 years, education was blew up over 300%. Back in the 50 years ago, if one was going to school and they gave a Pell Grant, the Pell Grant covered 80%, 85%, 85% of tuition when you go to school. Now if people get a Pell Grant, it only covers 30% of your tuition for a public university or college. Public, not private, but public university or college. So that little Pell Grant that people get now, that's not going to cover anywhere close to your tuition. And if you get, and you can say, oh well, you can apply for scholarships and this and that. It's like that's planning. But the majority of black folks, people of color, or whatever you want to call it, may not have that luxury to send their children to college, brand new car, debt free, pay $20,000, $30,000 of tuition, which includes room and board, books, and everything else, to go to a public school at that. Forget about it if it's a private school. It's way more than that. Ain't nobody grew up as a trust fund baby, black, unless you are Jay-Z or Beyonce or one of those big Hollywood stars or movie stars that says, "Oh, I'm sending Denzel Washington, I'm sending my son to go to Morehouse." They got money. They grew up in Hollywood and have millions and millions and millions and worth millions of dollars, and they send next school. They go to, and then they advertise it, not so much for the child's sake. They want to advertise it as some publicity. Oh, I'm sending my child to, what was it? Angela Jolie, the black child. Her daughter. She going to Spelman in the fall. And they advertised that in on social media, and her, when she adopted one of the black girl, she going to Spelman, and she's like, oh, people just trying to put themselves just for publicity's sake and attention. Now, you ain't gotta worry, you ain't gotta struggle. Hey, Romeo, you ain't gotta worry and struggle about paying tuition for your son or daughter, or some of these stars. Some of these stars, they making their income is so high, and they say, I'm gonna send my child to Morehouse, and then they want to advertise it. I sent my child to Now, whether they graduate or not, I don't know. But for a regular, ordinary family who may have struggled, working hard, they want to send their child to school, to college, they may not have that money set up like that. Let me tell you, when my parents, they ain't had no money to send me to college when I went, but I had managed to got scholarships, the Pell Grant. But back in 1987, when I graduated and went to in-school, in-state, Baruch College, the tuition was not expensive. The reason why my student loan blew up the way it is was because I transferred, went to University of South Carolina, then I had to come up with money to pay for room and board, tuition, because I think they charged me what, out of state at the time. It wasn't even in state at the time when I transferred, and the state school was blew up. But see, I wanted to go to the army. When I went to college, I ain't gonna tell that story. That's another story altogether. I wanted to go to service, but no. Listen to one of my dumb uncles, and you need to stay in school. And anybody help me pay tuition when I went to South Carolina? Nope. You need to finish school. You need to finish college. Blah blah blah. So the only way that I could have paid the tuition to finish paying up the tuition was taking out a student loan. The payroll have to do all the information. What are you talking about, Romeo? I don't know what you're talking about. That's irrelevant what I'm talking about. You don't need to go with no payroll and this and that. I pay my own student loan, so I don't know what you're talking about. So that's irrelevant. Don't put information that doesn't make sense, because I'm not really in the mood anyway to go back and forth. So don't make up stuff that sounds stupid. And then I don't care anybody say, "Oh, they're being mean. He just being helpful." No. So what are you talking about? What does that have to do with what I'm speaking about? Nothing. So basically, for all those who want to talk about, well, they shouldn't give no student loan forgiveness and this and that. I paid my tuition, or ain't nobody said to go to that school and be, don't say stupid shit like that. But people, what they shouldn't do and should not go, because black folks, Hispanic, people of color are the ones who's being affected with this $1 trillion of student loan debts, trying to better themselves to get educated and hope that they get a better job. It has nothing to do with, if you choose a major that was in demand, it wouldn't be in this situation. It had nothing to do with it, because you could major in, hold on, who the hell's calling me? Fuck. Hello? This is she. I'm busy at the moment. Yes. I said I'm busy and you still talking. But the point is that don't be sitting here saying people who took out student loans wasted the money and da 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 and all that kind of stuff. Majority of people who went to school, they took out student loans. Majority of people took out loans so they could get a degree and get a better job or career when they finish. If you're a black woman, black man, you can major in a high demand or whatever the case may be. You still have to deal with a lot of glass ceilings to get into any type of workforce or career, and face a whole bunch of other issues. And for those who's been so fortunate to be in certain careers that pays high figures, that pays high amount of money, because that student loan forgiveness also has an income limit. So if you $125,000 and less, you get the forgiveness of 20,000 or 10,000. But if you make, a certain amount of money beyond that, you make 200,000 a year or whatever, you're not gonna get your student loans forgiven. If I made $200,000 a year, trust and believe that student loans will be paid off in full, and I would have gotten rid of that debt. Boom, gone. Because prior to 2 years ago, that student loans people had to pay was accruing interest and interest. But when COVID happened, they put a pause because of the COVID situation. And if you was to manage to, and trust me, if you manage to try to make payments when they paused the student loans, all these companies, it was a majority of companies dropped out from putting out the student loans and handling and managing the student loans. So they sold it to another company, or they held it on pause anyway. So even if you wanted to pay the student loans online, They made that situation so difficult to do. I made student loan payments when the COVID paused. Now I didn't make it every single month. I didn't make a whole big chunk, but they made that difficult as well. Most people paying interest on the student loan interest. So don't come up in here talking about it ain't fair and why should they get it forgiven. That little $10,000, $20,000, it'll put a little dent and it may help some people who had way less. If they have $30,000 remaining and whatever, it may pay, it may pay them and help them a lot, and they have to still pay it. But it ain't gonna wipe it out completely. It ain't like it's not like they came up with the news. All right, everyone who has student loans, we're gonna forgive the whole entire thing and wipe it out clean to zero. That would have never happened. That would not have happened. I don't know why I'm surprised they did that. No, I said, okay, I'm pretty much sure that it's going to be $10,000. But when they said it was $20,000, and I read the conditions, if you get a Pell Grant, then it's $20,000, and then it's 10 if you didn't get a Pell Grant, but it had to be the student loans taken out from the government, not private student loans, and then you had an income limitations. 125,000 single, 250,000 married joint. And as for the taxes, or anybody want to ask that question, if they forgive the student loan, it is not tax. So people who I was reading these comments on somebody else's channel, the IRS are gonna turn around and just gonna tax it. No, it's not tax. It is not tax. So get that out your mind. Don't ask that question. Don't be making comments about it, because that part is not going to be, you're not going to get a 1099-C cancellation of debt and got to pay it. There was a whole lot of people a few years ago had mortgages, walked away, didn't pay their mortgage. They had mortgage cancellation. You took out a loan to get the house, apartment, townhome, or whatever, and whatever happened, you had your mortgage dismissed. You ain't had to pay no taxes. So remember that. Remember, if you were one of those people who did something like that, or you the one who have Section 8 and paying $10 a month, I'm just exaggerating, paying $10 a month and then complaining when they raise the rent, and then you go and pay $5 a month for Section 8 housing and getting all this stuff. Don't say nothing. If you got child tax credit and you got credit for, you file your taxes, barely worked, and you got a bunch of kids that you couldn't afford to take care of, but you waiting for a handout for child tax credit and have the government take care of your child rather than getting off your lazy ass and working and doing the best you can. So anybody got something to say about student loans? Oh, that's not fair. I paid my student loans. I paid mine off and da-da-da-da. I paid taxes too. And in terms of, it's just going to explode the inflation. The student loans, that's going to put more money for inflation. Trust me. It was only a couple weeks ago that Biden signed off $1 billion to Ukraine. It was only a few weeks. It was only a couple years ago, even when Trump passed $1 trillion for people who had businesses to forgive those business loans. Nobody came up in a hoopla holler about that. Not a damn thing. So don't come on here with no student loan. It ain't fair, and this and that. Now, if you so happen to be someone else, if you're a person who have your student loans forgiven, or whatever the case may be, what I will be doing is that I'm going to continue on working on my budget, continue on making sure I keep my debt, no credit cards. I ain't got no credit card debts. If I have a credit card and I put something on a credit card one month, it's paid off the next month. There's a little bit of breathing room. I feel that, for all these years, paying on these loans, paying on this student loan, paying on this student loans, that's the racket. These colleges and universities, see now people are gonna be like, they're gonna learn. If you've been going to school in these last couple of years, a lot of people haven't really. People are gonna be more cognizant about debt, student loan debt. Student loans was meant for an opportunity for people to advance themselves in the middle class to work. But the situations now in schools, it ain't nothing more than, even if you went to a public school, private school, whatever, it ain't nothing. Now, in this time of age, and the things one needs to learn, you don't even have to invest as much money like that. But black folks in particular, we're not taking advantage of even bettering ourselves anyway. To be honest, I spoke about, like I said last night in my video that I did. I spoke about that last night. People, if you working at Amazon and they offering all these opportunities for career choice and opportunities while you working there, take advantage to learn a new skill set. That's great. I'm doing it now, but they didn't have that type of thing back in 1987, 88, 89. You know, people need to be aware of what this generation that people who pick the generation that people are in. People, anyone about my age, they got student loans and they paying for their child's education as well. You know, so don't talk. Don't so when I hear people talk about, ooh, people wasting the money and they ain't no one told them to go to school. Shut the fuck up, because I'm responding on that JT pocket watching channel that I was on when he didn't let nobody talk. He over talking. Ain't nobody say that, yelling and screaming, and then telling me don't concentrate on people what they saying in the chat. And these dumb Negroes criticizing them up in the chat. They didn't went to nobody's school or university, because you could tell by the way they wrote the sentence in the chat. Fuck you. And I still go back um to that incident. Yeah, it's been months ago, but I'm gonna go back to that because I remember how pissed off that I was really getting, how people was just so judgmental about what people shouldn't do. And nobody said to go and get a major that you ain't gonna pay no, and ain't nobody tell you, man, you can major in the most high demand that doesn't guarantee you nothing. 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 Public education should be free. Public education is free from the kindergarten to the 12th grade, but it ain't free, because if you pay your taxes and you pay property taxes, sales taxes, all taxes, and you want to go to a public school while if you live here in the United States, depending on where you live, depending on how the school district is, you know, they don't value, if you went to an inner city school and it's a bad school area, district or whatever, the education free, but then it says, oh, you can send your kids to charter school and send them where there's the best education ever. Yeah, I'm supposed to subsidize, paying my state federal taxes to subsidize schools in a whole different city or a whole different part of the state where they have all the advancements. But then if I went to another school in DeKalb County and it's run down and they don't have the adequate resources and everything else, you know, and then and then people who on those unfortunate situations, they always want to speak about, oh, go ahead and get your education, go ahead and go to school, you get better, and then you end up, you know, the parents don't have financial means to send their school debt free without worry about debt. And then some parents And I'm gonna tell you, some people, family members, have the money to send their child to school without having to take out student loans, and then they don't even finish school and drop out. And then the parents is left with that big student loan to pay back. And I say that from experience because one of my cousins, well, three of my cousins, they're all brother and sister. None of them graduated. The first one went to Virginia Tech. She blamed my aunt that you forced me to go there. And my aunt was a school teacher. My mother's oldest sister. The second one came. She got accepted to Connecticut, University of Connecticut. You thought she learned from the first one. No, she dropped out too. Then my cousin, the third one, went to University of Virginia. He failed and dropped out too. My aunt gave them an F-150 or no, a big ass Escalade. Ooh, this is hot. To go to University of Virginia, but he need a car to go to school. An Escalade truck. All three of them dropped out. They didn't fail. Well, one did fail. They were partying, having a good time. You know, they were. I don't know if they were forced to go to college, but I think it was expected of them to go to college. My aunt was a school teacher. They didn't want to go to college in the first place, but they all dropped out. All three of them. Now they had it made. My aunt took. I don't know if if she had a college fund for all three of them or whatever, but they all three of them went to school. All that money was wasted. I don't even know if they had student loans, and if they did have student loans, I sure don't recall if my aunt told them to pay it. But they all working now. They way off in. Let me see. They all in their one should be in her mid 30s by now. One should be almost 40, and one should be almost 50. So they old enough. They not 20 year. They not no 20-something-year-olds, and they not millennial either. One is in my generation, the oldest one. The other one, they might be a late millennial. They might be 40-ish, 35, 5, something. I don't know. All I know is they ain't went to school. They didn't went to college, and blame my aunt. But I ain't had to go to school anyway. And then they had it made spoiled, thinking they were better than everybody else. But the point that I'm making is this: at one point, college was stressed, particularly the black community. It was really pushed about going to school, and the ones who were like, oops, the ones who didn't look like they were college material or whatever the case may be, they were trying to push the military on the on some of them, or if they were even interested. I don't know. All I know is this: the $10,000, $20,000 is going to help a majority of people, and but that's not, in my opinion, going to push inflation or jack up inflation. That's just a bunch of bullshit. Republican hateful people who worrying about something. Oh, we're gonna, inflation's been pushed high as the way it is, and that student loans ain't gonna make it no better. Trust me, that is not the problem when it comes to this economy now. About some student loans, that's a drop in a bucket. That's a nickel in a. That's a nickel. That ain't no big thing. That's what kills me the most. You know what? You know what's going to be the benefits when people getting something? People getting coming here, refugees or foreigners coming here and um, moving in areas and just rolling out the red carpet, and people getting um, Oh, I know what was the thing that because I heard about it when the United States had wars around the world, how they paid restitution to the other countries, Germans, Asian, they were giving people um, hundreds and thousands of dollars of restitution. This country, not just Biden, but every president previously, they've been giving out these earmarks of of monies in the trillions, in the billions and trillions. And people talk about, oh, we're gonna give $10,000 student loan, and everybody getting an uproar over $10,000. That's like 10 cents when it comes to what money the United States shoved out and gived out to billions of billion dollars of companies, or a whole lot of government waste of money is given out to people. Mm-mm. Trust me as a taxpayer, you as a taxpayer, and everybody else, whether you took out student loans or not, whether you went to school or not, they say, why should I pay? Why should I pay? I didn't go to college. Why should I pay for someone else? Trust me, if you sit here getting benefits of any sort, I could say the same thing. And I'm paying taxes too. I'm paying taxes too. I probably paid millions of dollars of taxes throughout my working life from the time I first started working, whatever age I was, till now. I paid my dues. People who went to, if you got a student loan forgiveness, you paid the dues as well. So don't be getting on no YouTube channel and comment sections talking nonsense about that ain't fair. Why should I pay? Why should they get? Hmm. Okay. Whatever. But Romeo, there's nothing about no. They cannot deduct no student loan payment out of your check. So that's incorrect. So that is totally wrong, and that is not true. So don't make comments that don't make any sense, and that's not true. So I don't know. When I throughout the few years I've known you, I've never heard you work at a regular job. You've been saying you've been working at nonprofit organizations or volunteering, but that's not true. Now, if you owe debts and you owe child support or whatever, and you have a court order and you have a lien, not a lien, a levy on your pay, they will notify the company you work for to put a levy on your check to pay for some debt that you did not pay and it was court ordered and it's been in collections. That will happen. The way you pay your student loans to the student loan provider, just like anything else, but they do not take out money out your pay. All right, five people. Y'all been on here watching me. Where's the thumbs ups? Give me the thumbs. Thank you. And who else is on here? Y'all lurking in the background. All right, six of y'all. Two of y'all better hit the thumbs ups. I just don't know what's going to happen in these coming months with this rate this recession is going. People speaking about 50% of companies are going to be laying off people. I don't. When will it ever become where things are going to be not back to normal, but when is it going to come up to things where things are going to start to get a little bit better? I mean, all these things that's been happening in the world, not because of no coronavirus and stuff, but it's these all around the country, China, all these major companies dealing with these financial lows. I know when I was looking at videos about what's going on in Australia and England, it's way worse over there than it is here. It is way worse over there than it is here. But I don't know. All I could do at this point, we just have to be mindful about our own money and stop hating on other people about what's fair and ain't fair. I didn't go to school and why they went to school and this and that or whatever. Whatever. All right, I'm going to bed because I'm tired, and I usually be on here for an hour, but y'all not interacting and y'all not saying nothing in the comments. So since y'all not saying nothing, I'm going to end it. Comment, leave a comment. If he's talking foolish, it will be held for review, and it will be deleted. So if you decide to write something stupid and dumb about anything about what's not fair and this and that or whatever, or nobody said for no one to go to school, leave the comment, leave that to yourself. Make it make sense if you're gonna make a comment on what I wrote. Most times people say, well, if you would write something just because you don't agree, no, I don't agree when you're talking nonsense, when you're talking foolishness. Now, I'm gonna summarize what I spoke about. So basically, today the Biden administration passed that $10,000 of student loans, as long as it was federal student loans, not private student loans, would be forgiven if you um, if you did not get a Pell Grant. If you received a Pell Grant, and I assume that's you're going to get a Pell Grant if it's an undergrad. So that means basically, if you got a Pell Grant, Pell Grants are only issued and you go to undergrad, then it's $20,000 of federal student loans will be forgiven up to people whose household income is less than $125,000, the single, and $250,000 if it's married. It will not be taxed. You will not get a 1099-C and say you had a student loan forgiven. So um, it's not taxed. And they will continue to pause the penalty or the interest until at the end of the year, December 31st. So you have until December 31st to pay on your student loans without accruing interest and penalties. So if you have private student loans, then unfortunately that's not forgiven. Also, there was the Borrows Act, where if you went to a for profit school that had basically defrauded so many people, Capella is on that list, as the University of Phoenix, Keller, DeVry. There's a whole lot of schools that's on that list. And if you took out loans from any for profit schools, those loans were supposed to be forgiven. But when I tried to fill out that long ass application, because I wanted to get half of that student loans forgiven, because half of it was when I went to Capella, and they promised about, oh, we got career opportunities, and I haven't heard from that school since. And I've been applying. I even applied for a position at Capella and didn't even get it. So I don't know. But there's a whole bunch more details about that student loan act that was passed, and um, it's going to provide some relief to millions of people. But in my opinion, people, me, and people who've been paying their student loans month after month, year after year, they should forgive that because all that do was paying interest, you know, and probably pay that student loan tenfold throughout the years. And I think that it it would have been better if it was $50,000 for sure. But mm, it is what it is. But we'll see. We shall see. But if you sit here getting Section 8 housing, food stamps forever, not I'm not talking about temporary, because you're seasonal and then you get unemployment and then you get, for 2 months. But if you sit up in here getting Section 8 housing, paying nothing for rent, and then they go up in rent and you're complaining, or you getting all these kind of aid and you able bodied, could get up your ass and get a job or do some type of training, or you so happen to mess up on your credit cards and get bankruptcy. Hey Sam's, and you sit up in here and have all those government assistance through years, and you had all these things wiped out, and nobody complained about that. And we talking about some $10,000, $20,000, you know, and they sit up here giving billions of dollars to Ukraine and all these countries around the world, you know, Afghanistan and all, and money wasted. That was money wasted. 10 years in Afghanistan, and you end up paying trillions of dollars throughout the years. And where did that go? What happened to that? Wasted. It's amazing how people feel what's fair and what's not fair, but then they forget what has been done in the past. How people were getting money. You know, that don't make no sense. People went to school to get their education so they could advance themselves. Even if you went to school to be a teacher, people went to school to be teachers. They don't even pay teachers well. They went to school to be a teacher. Who you think somebody has to teach kids and children and people work in certain healthcare facilities? They don't get paid a lot of money just because you say, oh, they're a doctor, they're a nurse. That don't mean they get paid a lot of money. People think they do. You only get paid a lot of money when you're in those type of positions is because you working 15, 20 hours a day in the hospital. You sitting here working, you ain't working no 9 to 5 as a nurse. You be working 10, 12 hours, 15-hour days and strenuous work. And working under conditions where you're not really paid what you work. You paid because you work a lot of hours and because you work way beyond 40 hours a week as a nurse, you're getting money because you're getting paid for the overtime. No life work balance. Teaching. You're a teacher. They don't get paid a lot of money. People who are nurses at the schools and public hospitals and what else? Government employees, people who are in the military. Some people in the military, they went to school, had student loans and whatever. People working in the government, I worked at the IRS and the government agencies, people taking verbal abuse for that little bit of pay. People act like you get paid a lot of money. So to me, That debt forgiveness is money that is due for years of service and all the aggravation that people had to deal with. That's, in my opinion, that little $10,000, $20,000 ain't enough, considering people put years of pain and years of stress, years of aggravation in certain occupations that don't pay anything, but you had to go to school, you had to go to college, you had to get a degree in order to get the position, but they don't want to pay anyone well. But then people talking about, oh, that's not fair. Ain't nobody told you to choose that job. Ain't no one tell you to do that. Man, fuck you. If you're one of those people who gonna come up here and argue about that, about what someone didn't do, and nobody took the force to choose, who the hell you think is supposed to be teaching your kids, your raggedy ass, spoiled ass kids, when school started? That's why I'm not a teacher. That's exactly why I'm not no teacher. My aunt did say, why'd you go into teaching? And I said, nope, because I ain't gonna have no patience. Because one, the patience is gonna come from the parents and thinking that their child ain't do nothing wrong, and they have to deal with the way these kids are, back talking, smart ass kids. They think they grown and got something to say. I'll punch them in the throat. I can't be no teacher. But you, the people who are teachers in the last 20 years, the BS I have relatives who are teachers. Some of them retired. Some of them was to be a preschool teacher and used to work in daycare and taking care of other people's kids, and they going through hell. Years of working, they said, people can't take that no more. Government employees, military, police. There's a lot of people who went to school and have student loan debts, but nobody looks at that. They don't look at that. They put themselves, people who work in these sectors, in these places, went to school because of that. Everybody is not meant to, um, is not meant to be engineers. Everyone's not meant to be um, teachers. Everyone don't have the aptitude for certain type of occupations. You know, it's just not. Certain generations, you may, depending on when you was when you grew up. If you an '80s baby like me, the culture of promoting school, college in particular, was the thing, particularly in the black community. It's only technically really two generations out that black folks were allowed to even go to college. When I think about it, that first generation, my mother's generation, my aunts and uncles, they were probably one of the first generations that really had that aptitude, well, opportunity rather, to go to college and go to school. My grandparents, they weren't that opportunity. They went to elementary school. Luckily, they went to high school, but generation before that, people were not that far off from being educated. But it just so happens that my mother in that generation, when they grew up in the '60s, you know, they went to schools and universities and colleges. It was not that expensive. It was very cheap. I tell you, they didn't have no thing like student loans. There was no such thing as student loans back in the day. Black folks were not allowed to go to a lot of these public universities. University of South Carolina, they didn't admit no black folks back in the '60s. It was probably mm, early '70s, maybe '60s, but I know it wasn't. But they didn't have black folks was not allowed to go to those colleges and you back in the '50s and all that stuff. They went to the HBCUs, historically black colleges, and but the state public schools, it wasn't until the early '70s that they were really allowed that opportunity to go to a public schools. And even then, certain like in New York, the tuition was not no what it is, what it is, and what it costs. When they gave out Pell Grants, it was for low income families and households to go to school, and they paid 70. I know I'm kind of summarizing what I said an hour ago. I've been on here for an hour. The Pell Grants, when they gave it out to go to public school, it covered almost 85% of the tuition. Tuition was not what it is. You know? So think about public policy of the government when they pass certain bills to relieve not just a certain group of people, just because you didn't go to college, just because you were one of those people, I paid off my student loans, so they should pay off theirs too. You don't, people so quick to say, I paid off my student loans. I'm quite sure if you had six figures or you had $90,000, $80,000, and you had something like $10,000 owed in student loans, that ain't shit. I wish I did owe $10,000 in student loans. I would have had that paid off within a year, if not less. But it's insurmountable to pay student loans when you're trying to work two jobs, a side gig, and all these jobs to pay off your student loans. We're not even talking about the budget of housing and food and everything else. So don't come back about nothing about what I paid my loans of. Yeah, but you probably stayed at home with mommy and daddy and didn't pay shit, and you probably, didn't have no responsibilities, and you were able to pay some raggedy. I wish somebody would come to me talking about I only $5,000 and you still got fucking student loans with $5,000. Man, someone tell me something like that crazy, and I'm like, what the fuck? You got two vehicles and you making 60 something thousand a year? Man, I wish somebody would come up here complaining about a $5,000 student loan and you had it for 5, 10 years. That's ridiculous. Or 15 or more. Now that's stupid. You know? Now that I was like, what? I'm not talking about, you accumulated $50,000 to go to a school, and the student loans occurred 10, 11 years ago. But 5,000, 6,000, something like that, nope. Even if you had other debts, if it was, I wished if I ever had something really, really low, I would have been paid that off. Been paid it off. But you know what? Take advantage of that forgiveness loans if you got him. And if you ever had student loans in the past and you defaulted, meaning you didn't pay and they put it in collections and they defaulted, they now let people take that out of default. Where if you had your wage garnished and it was affecting it was on your credit, and and if you defaulted on student loan, they say you cannot take out any more student loans to go to school, and you had to go and take yourself a private student loan, they'll let you take that out and bring it current. But I know one thing: if it's something anything dealing with private student loans, you can forget it. Government backed loans, student loans. Oops, I'm trying to turn on the light. Uh-oh. Dang it. Anything else is what was I saying? If you have private student loans, it ain't it ain't gonna be forgiven. You can forget it. The government student loans, they're gonna forgive it, but to be honest, all you're doing is basically paying for it. I'm paying. Trust me, taxes will go up next year. A lot of these credits and a lot of provisions that people, well, yeah, I ain't getting that. I can't wait to tax season. I get my money. Might get my money. That ain't nothing more than overpayment and refund. But so when they start cutting all these extras little stuff, these other child tax credit, additional child tax credit, this credit, that credit, and this and that, and you sitting on your ass getting Section 8 housing and food stamps and free daycare and free this and free that and everything else, and you ain't hardly pay no taxes. I know it's supposed to be to help the poor, but come on. To some extent, some people been riding that gravy train for a long, long time. I rather that elderly people or people who've been, I rather see people who are disabled, elderly get those type of assistance, especially when it comes to housing. Section 8 housing or reduced housing, it should go to only people who are elderly, not your grown ass 30 something year old with two, three, five baby daddies living in Section 8, sneaking in boo boo and seeking your baby daddy in the Section 8 housing, and you pants dragging, non niggerish talking, weed smoking, funky, funky, barely driving Uber, Lyft, food delivery options should be getting any type of assistance. You're walking around here with your pants dragging down, and you're walking around here with 10 baby mamas, and you can't take care of your kids, and you calling IRS and talking about they said I can't get my refund. You got identity theft issues because you did something stupid. I don't want to hear it. They should, these raggedy hood rats be, they're sitting up in there with Section 8 and sitting up in the welfare office talking about, my baby, me need food, and you getting these big refund checks every year. And most of it is credit. Most of it is a refundable credit for taxes. And you barely work, and you work just to file a tax return because they already know what the scoop is. You work just enough at some at McDonald's with the nasty fucking attitude, just enough to get a W-2 to file your taxes so you can get the earned income tax credit and child tax credit and this credit and food stamps, Section 8, this and that. You're 20 something years old, you're 25, 30 years old, 30, maybe 40. At some point, you need to get off the fucking gravy train with the government assistance and dragging and getting all that money. Everybody like to criticize about the rich. Well, people millionaires and they ain't pay no taxes and this and that. But let me tell you, the majority of problems too is for be so-called I ain't got no money, poor people, young, able-bodied minded, generation after generation after generation of all this handout. That is what gets on my nerves the most. So when people try to break out of that generational mindset of I ain't got no money, I'm poor, I'm on Section 8, and girl, it's lit and smooth, weed smoking, back pants dragging down your ass. I just can't. I can't. I may be critical on that or whatever the case may be, but they get your ass and get to work too. Amazon is always hiring. You go to any McDonald's, they always hiring, and a lot of these companies offers opportunities to go to school, especially Amazon. Amazon Choice, you could better yourself. You ain't gotta stay in the. You don't have to stay in the position of lack, poverty, and don't fall for these little quick witch scheme stuff that you see on YouTube too. That's a bunch of bullshit too. Don't follow for that. Like I said, I'm the hardest working person you will ever meet on this YouTube streets. And I may do a lot of things, but one thing for sure is that I'm not gonna be sitting up in here like and sitting on my ass all fucking day, not doing nothing. And if I had to go back to my 18, 19, 20-year old self and had to make these decisions again and was a little bit more mindful about these student loans, I would have went to this military service after 2, 3 years of going to school, and then I would have not been in these debts. I would not have these student loans. I made a good decision in the beginning when I started going to college. When I got a scholarship with my church and a scholarship with my father's job, and I got the Pell Grant, I would have stayed at the City University of New York, Baruch College, when the tuition was not as expensive. I would have stayed, finished. I would have made better choices when I went to Capella. I would have never went to Capella. I would have been like, nope. I went to get my MBA is because I wanted to get an advancement within the government at the time, and they had a freeze. They had a job freeze for 10 years. They put a freeze on the at the government level, especially the IRS. But they said, "Oh, you need an advanced degree in accounting and to be an agent." And I sat there. I took advantage of tuition reimbursement, but some of them didn't cover everything. I took out loans. I applied hundreds of times because I thought that getting a MBA degree was going to really advance in my service when I was working at the government. And there was a lot of people went to got their master's degree. A lot of people got master's degrees. A lot of people with a PhD. I'm not doing no thing. People say, "Well, you get a PhD." I said, "No, I'm not doing that." Nope. At that point, I was like, nope. That's the only thing was that if I was not in the 80s babies where they was pushing education, and I was like, if I was a person growing up in this age now, I wouldn't have gone to school. I'll be real honest. I tell people all the time at Amazon, they young people. I said, nope, don't waste your time. Don't go to college. I said, what do you want to do? Well, I want to do. I said, don't choose nothing bullshit stuff. I said, if you want to, some people say they want to be an anesthetician or something, beauty school. Some people dropped out. I said, you drop out of beauty school. And I said, why don't you just take advantage of what Amazon has to offer? One girl, she got like 4 kids or 4 different daddies and stuff. And I'm like, I told her about going to school. And she going in September. She going to go to Merit USA with computer technical support. That's what she's choosing to do. And I said, you should do that. I said, because Amazon is always hiring for that position. I keep seeing it all the time. I said, you could work from home or work in the call center for technical support. And I told a lot of people they could do that. I said, we ain't got to, I said, I'm not going to be standing up on my feet 12 hours a day. I got to go to work tomorrow night. And I'm hoping they got VTO so I can go ahead and go back home. Otherwise, I'll go to work, but shoot. If I said, if I'm going to work somewhere, I'm going to take advantage, especially Amazon. They really pushing that career choice. They really do. So all y'all people, and I'm gonna end the stream now because y'all starting to drop off. 3 people left. If I was doing these gig work, Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, whatever, and I wouldn't be on YouTube. I'm about to watch some more YouTube channels in a minute, and people talking about complaining about Oh, it's $3, it's $2, it's $2.50. You a clown if you do that and take this order and this and that. Everybody want to guess and be and want to figure out what the algorithm is when it comes to DoorDash and about tips. And some people, y'all start to sound real silly. I've been watching people video. I said, you only going 1.22 miles and it pays $5 and you say no, I ain't taking that. And you just sitting there just driving around, and you thinking you just gonna pop up and get $10 and 12. Y'all crazy. I'm not saying take an order that's $2.50 and you going 30 miles, but you know, if you like the old head like me who did it back 5-6 years ago when the thing was $5 plus the tips and you was making money back in the day, you good. But these ones that just came on 2 years ago, been on here 2 years, y'all don't know what the hell y'all doing, and y'all know what y'all talking about. I told people a long time ago. I said it's only going to be a good 5 year run with these apps, and these rates starting to drop. It's time to do something different. It's time to move on. And even the commercials were a little bit different when Uber started out. Uber was like, "Oh, you a partner." Then after that, they changed it. Oh, let this side hustle be an alternative for what you really want to do. The Uber even told people, don't do this job as your all in all, but do it to to supplement what you really want to do. They even had a commercial like that. If you don't understand the message that even Uber was telling people, they first said we were partners. Then the rate started dropping. Oh, use it as a way to supplement what you really want to do. It wasn't meant to be. This wasn't meant for no long term exclusive type of thing to do. And it's not only just doing Uber because you can only do multiple apps one at a time. It's real hard to do two apps at the same time. You could probably do it, turn one off, turn one on, but not in this type of environment. I used to be the master of doing it. I knew exactly because it wasn't a big circle of areas at the time. But the way they got it now, nope, can't do it. So, anywho, so thank you, Sam's, Romeo, whomever else didn't come on here and refuse to say hi. And thanks for the 7 thumbs ups. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll talk to y'all later. I know it's kind of early. Maybe I'll come back later on. So, y'all come back if you see me on StreamYard. I may come back. I may maybe come back in an hour. I don't know. All right. Talk to you later. I do have some videos I want to download, especially about part 2 with the doctor's office. People's getting my damn nerves today. Anywho, talk to y'all soon. Bye.